Good morning, everybody. Good news, Susan. This is not the last class. We have two more classes. This is our last class of going through the fundamentals that we've been covering, clouds, water, or clouds, tree, and now water. And we're going to be looking at waves today. So very exciting. I'm thrilled to be presenting this finally. It's been 2 years since I've been promising that we're finally going to do this, so that's great. Really quickly, I'm just going to pop over and share where I found a whole bunch of our references. So let's go ahead and do screen share. Great. All right, so you guys are seeing this cool website that I literally found this morning. I shared a ton of photos that I have taken. But, you know, being at the ocean is a treat for me. I'm not there as often as I would like. So I don't have the best wave photos. And I thought, you know what, I should probably look for a couple online. So I did a quick search of copyright-free imagery of waves. And a whole bunch of them, you know, say they're, you know, free until you pop on them. And then, of course, it's free after you pay them. But this one seems to be free, except for a couple of them, and they are going to ask you to sign up as well, but very cool. Anyways, you just click on it. Oh, I put the link in our Padlet so you guys can see that and check it out yourself. And I'm just going to use Laura Berry's beautiful photo here. She's got these nice turquoise waves and this gorgeous colored sunset. And anyways, let's just say that we decided this is the one we want to use. Maybe we're going to combine it with other photos and we want to download it. So we just go simply up to here where it says download free, click that open. And then where I'm saving all these wave photos, I created a special file folder just for that. It says Laura Berry right on there. Very cool. And we'll save it and it goes to my folder. And then right here, if you want to give her a shout out, you could simply send her an email saying thank you, gorgeous picture, or you could wait till after you get the painting done or whatever, and if you feel like you'd like to share it with her. But most importantly, you guys, what I want you to do is simply put on the back of your painting the person's name, and all you have to do is simply say inspired by a photo from, you know, Laura Berry. And, you know, and you could even put a copyright free if you felt so inclined. It's just, again, it's just the right thing to do. You know, the odds of her coming after you, well, she wouldn't because it's copyright free anyways, but the, you know, odds of anybody coming after you are low, but it's just the right thing to do. When people lend me photos, or, you know, a lot of people will show me their beautiful sunsets. And if it's ever something I want to paint, I'll ask them for permission. And, you know, if they give me permission, that's what I do. I just write on the back, you know, based on a painting or inspired by a photo from Michelle Fritzler, and, you know, many thanks. And then when I post it online, I would probably say the same thing. And that's just, again, it's just the right thing to do. So there you go. Great website. We'll provide you hours of wasted time as you scroll through their thousands and thousands and thousands of, I think they have 7,000 photos on here of waves or something like that. But anyways, very cool. So let's get back to our Padlet. There we go. Everybody sees our Padlet page?
Yes.
Very cool.
Coming up.
All right. So as normal, all the class videos are posted here. Class handouts. I don't have any new links for you guys to see right yet, but and so here's our reference photos. I added quite a few. I didn't label all of them as photo by Michael Orwick, but if they're not labeled as copyright free, then you'd probably guess that I took it. And anyways, lots and lots. We'll go through these in just a second in more detail, but tons. You know, you can do aerial view. I even shared this one that I did the painting of, that I shared with you guys last week. That painting actually sold yesterday, so that was good news.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. And I even did an edit of it. Oh, I thought I added an edit of it. My intention was to. Anyways, I have a cropped version of just the waves. Must have saved it. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. Let's add that really quickly. So again, if you have great photos, would like to share, you just go to push the square, and I'm just going to drag and drop it in. And we'll have the edited version. It's quite pixelated because it was used. I took the photo 6 years ago when the technology is much, lower res, but it's kind of a nice picture. I'm actually thinking I might reuse these, just the wave elements, and change all the other stuff around it, add different rocks. I didn't like the mountain as much as I could have. I could even just change that to sky back there. So anyways, share that with you guys. I also added some, let's check these out, you guys. And I think we might do better if I can pull them up from my desktop so we can make them a little larger. Here we go. So here we are, this beautiful painting of very foamy crashing waves. And what we are, just like in the other with trees, we're going to be looking for the motion and the structure and the values, the lights and the darks, right? Do not get overly distracted by the beautiful colors in waves, not at the beginning, all right? We want to figure out how to build them up, all right? But this is a great opportunity to use your different turquoise colors, your turquoise phthalo, or your just plain turquoise, or any of the cool, interesting blues and greens you might have. Let's see, I have this guy this guy just blows me away. I'm not positive how to say his name. It's R-U-O and then last name Lee, or L-I, or Lai, I'm not sure. So Rao, Ru, I don't know how you say R-U-O. But anyways, this guy's brushwork I just love it so much. Let's see if I grabbed any others of his. This one of his? Yeah, here's another one. But what I really like, and what I want us to be aware of, just like with clouds, is the dissipated edges, right? Where they become soft. So you've got nice structural lines, strong shapes and brushwork, all the way up to this really soft, feathered out edges, which really just gives us the information that that's mist and the waves are literally exploding, crashing across these rocks. And then he always, almost in all of his wave photos, has this juxtaposition with these rocks that are just solid and firm and heavy. And so it really adds to the feeling of movement, right? Because that's another big element of the waves is movement. You've got what I heard called an unstoppable force hitting an unmovable object. I really like that, right? It's just two really big forces in nature, meeting headlong over and over and over and over. And just like mixing color and just like everything else, there's no formula to painting waves. Sorry if any of you are like, oh, finally, I'm going to learn the wave formula. I only know that when it comes to dancing. So, sorry. It's you've got to just analyze and look at what is going on, the lights, the darks, the hard edges, the soft edges, the warm colors, the cool colors, and all of that, and really just analyze it. And again, just like you really want to begin to think abstractly. Again, just observing. We do not paint things, right? That's why I don't teach formulas. We paint. Anybody?
Shapes.
Values, shapes,
Values, and
Shapes, values, colors. Now we've got edges. Yeah, shapes, values, color, and now edges. And light is the right answer, Susan, but it's
Okay.
get our light, we get our feeling of light because of our colors and values.
Hey, Michael, may I interrupt? I
Please.
can't believe it. I was so inspired by your painting reference of, however you say his name, Ru Lee. I used this one to paint the water, but I had a heck of a time. I'm not going to take too much time here. Getting the rocks, I would need down the road here help of getting the rocks, the like you said, the heaviness, the
Right.
solidness.
Well,
I
let's
don't know.
look at this picture by Ruli or Rowley. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you ever accidentally watch one of my videos, sir. I don't know how to say your name.
Yeah, me
But
too.
let's look at this. So what is it? You know, look at that contrast between water and rocks. You know, we've got value, the lights and the darks, of course, because the wave is much lighter, even in this shadowy area here, compared to the rocks, right? So this just tells you, look here, right? The contrast, the action, the lines, everything just says, look here. But again, more importantly, what we're looking at now is the contrast. How does the water feel like water? And how do the rocks feel like rocks? Soft, dissipated edges, strong, firm edges, crisp, clear. You know, he's putting this down, he's leaving an edge. He's, you know, he's not using a soft brush for this, where he probably is using a much softer brush with this. And he's just leaving these sharp, crisp edges. It's so important to make our rocks feel like rocks, our water feel like water, and our clouds feel like clouds, right? And that is done, a lot of that is done with value. Generally, things on the ground are darker than things in the sky, and edge quality. And that's what this class is all about, edges and brushwork. You know, he does get some darks in this water, and you'll, as we look at a lot of these references, we will see that the water can, of course, be very dark. Just like every painting forever and ever that is a landscape painting, we're going to ask our first two questions. Where's my light source and where is my horizon line? Okay, look at the horizon line is somewhere here, right? We don't know. It goes from water. Let's zoom in even a little more. Right? We don't actually know where the horizon line is in this, but it's definitely implied that it's just here and kind of here. And that happens a lot with the ocean, with, you know, especially if you're in the Pacific Northwest, where we get those beautiful cloud banks sitting out there to add color to our sunsets and and make our plein air painting time much shorter because the sun likes to tuck behind them there. Here's just an example of one of mine. This is an older painting by quite a lot. But you can see, again, same kind of concept, the lighter waves, the firm, heavy rocks. This rock is getting engulfed by the, you know, the wave is not just hitting and exploding, it's starting to collapse down over the top and wrap around the sides. And this one was really about, you know, I mean, the wave is very exciting and fun, but for me, it was about this color shift. I was really curious. I think this is probably far enough back that you can tell it's old because I put my signature really big. I was very proud of myself during those years. But it starts very cool and cold, those blues. And then slowly my goal is to get back to these peaches. So blue, green, then towards the blue purples, then the pinkier purples, getting back towards the purple reds, back towards oranges, and eventually up to yellow. Right? I mean, this could be an absolutely garish, annoying painting, and maybe you still think it is, but you know, because it's literally got the rainbow in it. That's not very typical for me. I like the more monochromatic and earthy colors, but that was sure fun. This actually might be a fun painting to revisit. I think I posted the reference for it. Let's see. Yes, I did. Or I can add the reference. So here's my reference photo that I got for it. So yeah, I definitely took some liberties, made some changes, everything else. You can tell it's an old photo, it's all pixelated, but Yeah, this might be a fun one for some of you that are a little more advanced or want to do work more on your atmosphere and color shifts. Anyways, lots more yellow in this one than in my photo. Let's check out a couple more. So I'm just going to be kind of jumping back and forth between reference photos and reference paintings by other artists. Here is another old ocean painting that I did. I think, boy, I bet you this one's almost really early after I made the change from doing illustrations to starting to focus more on landscape painting. But we do get to go to Cannon Beach a lot. That's where I show at Dragonfire Gallery, the place that just sold the painting. Thank you, Dragonfire. And anyways, we used to have a cabin there, which unfortunately we sold. But so we did spend quite a bit of time and going out after the on a clear night or when the moon was showing. I almost found to be more beautiful sometimes, just because if the moon is strong enough, how it just lights up the foam and the cresting waves and the action there. So I wanted to try my best to capture that. I would paint it differently now. You can see I put warm colors down into some of my shadows and different things that kind of destroy some of the illusion a little bit. And I probably combined 5 photos. I mean, these rocks don't even actually sit out in the ocean. They are up on the bank quite a bit further, but you know, artistic liberty, artistic license, use it whenever you want. But I did want to share this. Again, I think I probably used like a couple references and stuff out of my head, but yeah, like I said, I have a lot of these on there. Let's look at the form of a wave. If I was going to be teaching a formula for waves, right? This is probably what you guys would think of, right? The perfect surf wave, right? Cresting, turning motion. And so I did want to grab a couple of those references for you guys to, you know, if that is what you want to paint, and it is beautiful. We don't get these kind of waves much in Oregon. We've got a rocky coast, pretty brutal coast. There are a couple of spots where surfers can go, but for the most part, you would just get dashed across the rocks. And our waves just don't break this cleanly that often. We don't get that, what's it called, a barrel. But when we think of waves in the generic sense, I believe this is what we think of, you know. And the interesting thing is that a little wave will do this and a gigantic wave will do that. So it basically, you know, as it's coming into the shore, all that force creates a big peak. You know, you get the big kind of triangle shape if we're looking at the wave sideways. And then as it begins to run further ashore, the top of that wave is still got its velocity where the bottom of the wave is beginning to slow down. So all of a sudden the top of the wave will crest and roll across the top. Okay, so if you've ever wondered, I guess, why waves are doing what they're doing, why are they breaking only at the shore for the most part? That's a big part of it. It's just the slowing down of the base of the wave while the top stays in motion, you know, a little bit faster than the bottom. And then you get this nice barrel and turn. What I like to think of, and let me see if I can do a quick show here. I'm gonna do stop share. Grab a piece of plain white paper. And how you're going to think of it, again, the wave's kind of coming in. If I do it sideways here, there, sorry, comes in like this, and then the top of it, I don't know why I'm moving it. Top of it will start to roll across, right? You can also think of it as a piece of paper as it's beginning to turn. So I here have just a light on top of me. So you can actually see if it was a top light as the wave's turning, it's getting into the shadow. Where's the darkest part of that shadow, right? It's at the top here. That's again from top light. And then as it begins to turn, that top part is picking up the light from above and begins to roll, roll across and crash down, right? Does that make sense, you guys? So if you, and this would change, of course, if my light was behind, in front, to the side. So this is actually good practice for you. Here's just a nice calm ocean. My waves are starting and rolling. You can see the light gets shadow, 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 shadow. Let me turn off the light behind me real quick. Now we only have a top light and that window. So all flat, top light shining down. As it turns, you can see that this part of the paper will start to get darker and darker, I think. And till the top rolls and catches the light again. All right. So you can actually, if you are saying, you know what, I want front lit waves or I want side lit waves or whatever else, you can actually think of the piece of paper, or in fact, just grab a piece of paper and do that and see how the lighting works. And let's go back to our share. And you can see, this is, I assume, top lit. Kind of looks side lit if I'm looking at his here, and he's casting a shadow there. So it's kind of a top side light coming across this way. You can see the shadows in the waves. So again, where's my light source? Super important. And this is a little bit like I just showed you, where the water here is flat, picking up most of the direct light. As it rolls into the barrel, that gets darker and darker. This part is in shadow, literally underneath the barrel, and also picking up the least amount of light. And then as the barrel starts to come across, it's translucent here, so the light is getting through it, but the top of that wave and the foam and the mist is definitely much lighter, right? That's why we don't need to know a formula for anything. I mean, I just hate painting formulas. I would rather we learn to ask questions, right? Begin to analyze and look at the thing. And that is the true gift for us painters, is we look at things differently. We look at things deeper. And it can be a bit of a pain sometimes when you're just like, I just want to get to the fun part. But no, but it's in that observation that we get a deeper understanding of nature, a deeper understanding of light, a deeper understanding of atmosphere. Normally when I'm out painting waves, it's really quick, right? Because the waves are moving and changing, and it's such an interesting concept, painting plein air waves, because they are the worst models as far as standing still for you. But the cool thing is they're very repetitive, even though every single wave, just like a snowflake or a person, is complete, can be very, very different. There is aspects of the waves that are repeated. This is, I think I talked about this possibly in my last class. This is a painting that I did my last trip out to the coast. And I spent literally probably 2 hours on this little tiny 9x12, and for me, that's really quite slow, because normally I'm just trying to capture the big information, color and everything. But I spent so much more time looking and observing than I did actually painting. And these waves were more backlit. So we got this, for Oregon especially, we got this beautiful turquoise coming through. And that's really what I was trying to capture. But I also wanted to kind of understand what is going on, because when this wave's happening, it is literally sucking up that, this mist, this kind of messy foam and stuff. And I was so curious to watch it get sucked up into the barrel and then spit back out, right? And just crash down. I was also just really looking for values and temperature shifts. I had a very, very good time with this painting. This is a painting that I'll probably keep because it's worth far more to me than I could charge for it. And it's just, again, a memory of a good time with my family. And, we were all just sitting out there watching the waves. My wife was reading, my mother and grandmother were, our mother and mother-in-law were, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, good memories. So this is one I want to keep. But it was just interesting for me to mentally just slow it down and just say, you know what, I'm just going to look. I'm going to put not only the information on the canvas, but I'm going to digest and put that memory or that into my head. Okay. Any questions, you guys, so far?
I'm
Michael,
interested
can we go
on
back to that?
Oh, I'm sorry. On that photo, just
Yeah.
at some point in time, all the little darks and lights, like in front of the crest or in front of the foam, you know, how I would not get completely immersed in trying to duplicate each one of those little tiny marks.
So are you asking me how to not get, like, are you talking about like
Or
this little-
should I? Yeah, how do you deal with all those little teeny tiny darks and lights to give a good representation, but also not to just get lost in it?
Let's see what adjustments this will let me do on just this or filter.
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, simplification is your best friend, right? I don't know what these different ones do. I was hoping it would have a posterize. But yeah, what I would do is I would think, again, big shapes to small shapes, just like always, right? Dark to light. And then you're just telling yourself, like, does this ripple, do these little ripples, you know, individually? Is that what you mean when you say the detail and the little?
Yes.
Does that actually help tell the story, or would it be more about the action? And there's nothing wrong about painting detailed paintings, Michelle. If that's where your heart is taking you, and you know, you've seen me painting really loose and really, you know, yeah, really loose, really impressionistic, like I did with the waterfall last week. And then you see me, some of my paintings get really quite detailed. In fact, that wave painting they just sold, like I told you, I spent 6 years on that painting. Kind of weird to actually have it sell. That was really quite detailed for me. And I think it was because I got so excited that I was finally finishing and I finally got brave enough I got over the fear of ruining it to the joy of doing it. Ah, that's a nice little rhyme. Write that down, Michelle. Oh boy, there's a t-shirt for you. The fear of ruining it to the joy of doing it. Oh man. All right. Our next painting class title. But anyways, leave without saving, yes. But in my Photoshop, I have a posterize, right? And I can pick the level of posterization, and it, you know, can make it very, very blocky. But I think that way. And so here, you guys, here is how we're going to go about thinking about waves, trees, clouds, all of it, is we are going to figure out if I had to make this with, like, let's say at the most 20 pieces of cutout paper, right? How do I do it? If I was to create a 20-piece puzzle out of paper of this, how would I do it, right? I've got all the colors, I've got all the values, you know. So you're going to look for what is the big binders. And that forces you to think very two-dimensionally. That was one of my most difficult things when I started doing plein air, was to take a three-dimensional, all busy, you know, just overload of data, of information, right? And to literally switch my brain into simplification and seeing in 2D, right? That's how we start. We start by thinking two-dimensionally, right? We want this to be flat and big shapes, right? So it's shape before form is the short way of saying that. All right. The form will come, just like the detail will come, right? And the form comes, right, by where those two puzzle pieces together. So let's say we had a big dark band. Let's ignore this surfer. We have this nice dark band at the kind of the top of the wave before it begins to crest, right? And then we have this mid-value dark band, right? I'm not putting all these striations of the movement and stuff. It's just a big mid-value band. And then I've got a big blue, beautiful turquoise band down here, right? The changing those shapes, you know, this long rectangle, this long rectangle, and this long rectangle, and then this green rectangle. How we turn two-dimensional into three-dimensional, or how we turn shapes into forms, is in that in between, right? It's that transition from here to here, from here to here. So the form is being proven and told to us in this area and in this area, in the in-betweens. All right, that is how I break down plein air painting. Is how can I see this thing as two-dimensional? How can I simplify it? How can I break it down into its root shapes, thinking big to small, big shapes to detail eventually, right? Does that make sense, Shelley? Am I explaining that right? Great. I'm just going off the people that are, I can see. I can't see very many of you because there's my big screen is taking up most of it. But anyways, good. Everybody else, that makes sense? Vivian, is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, in I have that same kind of problem, and I get what you're saying as far as that, but then you come to a place like this, even at the end of your piece, if you've cut out in that same area that that we were talking about, where all those little spattered marks that really, I mean, if I just cut out that block color of, you know, pinkish grayish that's there and this triangular shape, breaking that up, I mean, I mean, what kind of brush technique actually works in something like that? I mean, I struggled with that in the painting with the waterfall, you know, these just little pinpoints of darks and lights that happen. Is there a way that you actually can, like, you know, like with a tree, you know, you can kind of blot things and make things a little tree-ish, leafish rather, but that doesn't work in the same way with the water. It does with the spin drift, but not with this sort of ripples.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to paint photorealism, it's absolutely doable. This is just abstract, right? This is now, I mean, if I started the picture here,
Yeah.
I don't even know what you would think this is, right? Oh my God, look at the beautiful reflection of a giant crashing surfer wave. And that's great. Look at that mist. It's just shapes. So, Karen, when I talk about big to small, that same thing goes with shapes. I'm just thinking the biggest shapes coming down. So within each shape, right, we start off with what is the main thing here. It's this big pinkish, grayish, whatever color that is here, right? Yeah. And then within that shape, I would go, okay, over here, it's a little darker, it's a little cooler, right? And then, okay, oh, and look, along closer to this wave, there's a little bit more shadow also being reflected. It's still kind of warm, but it's got, you know, some of the same cools as here, and then it gets a little darker. So I'm thinking it's still big shape to smaller shape to yet smaller shape to yet smaller shape, until you just get to as small a shapes as you want to make. That is completely up to you and your painting god to decide, you know, what do you want? How much detail do you want? How much detail do you need? And sometimes I can't stop myself. I just get so and, you know, and sometimes that sells the painting. There's definitely people that, you know, oh, okay, so I just got a painting commission from Carmel for a big painting, a 3 foot by 4 foot painting. And they want me to take one of my little paintings, a little 8 by 10, and blow it up.
Oh, God.
And I was like, oh, well, I don't know, because it's such a soft, loose painting. And they, no, that's exactly what we want. We want this very atmospheric, soft edged, big painting. So they're more into the abstract nature of it. They're into the colors. They're not looking for the detail of these trees and the grasses that the painting is, right? So other people will be so like, oh, I need the branches, I need each leaf, I need the grasses, and that can all come, right? I love so many different people's works. Here, let me pull up probably my personal favorite. I don't know if this is his best example of his work, but these paintings I just keep returning to over and over again. And I think they're just studies. I think these are just little watercolor / gouache studies that this artist did in his book. And he's got a series of them that I've found on Pinterest. And to me, there's something magic in this just so beautiful. I love this lights, darks, and then it's just monochromatic. But for other people, they'd be like, that's so boring and nothing and just messy. Look, he's got drips and drabs, and I don't even know, is that his signature? What's going on up here? And other people would be like, you know what? I like, oh, that's not, I thought that was a painting. Other people will be like, I like this, it's in between, right? It doesn't have all the detail, but it's got more detail. Things are more refined. It's got warms and cools. So it is completely up to you. There's so many of my students think that, oh, I'm painting too much detail. That's wrong, right? There is no wrong in painting. It is your painting. You get to decide where it starts and where it ends. Is it loose and impressionistic? Is it just, just a few brush strokes, or am I interested in this, right? And then to your question, how do I do it? If I did want these, right? You can simply use a smaller brush, and I can talk about that, you guys. I actually am at a point in a painting right now where that is kind of my decision point. Let's see.
Michael,
Yes.
Vivian here. I just wanted to ask, if you blocked in, say, that sort of cool pink-ish color, that in that reflection of the white cap part, couldn't you maybe dry brush that turquoise over in places, just to hint at the...
Yeah, so I mean, glazing, you could dry brush. I'd probably use my dry brush more for a lot of this stuff. This might be more space for a little bit of glazing, adding a little bit of liquid, but whatever a little bit of medium, but yeah, whatever works really works. There's so many different ways you could, literally mix up all the in-between colors and just actually paint it all. You can use glazing techniques. There's so much you can do within that. Let's look at this one, because this one
maybe a little palette knife in there.
Absolutely. And waves are just so great like that, right? Because they just allow for so much exploring and experimentation. If you guys, really want to impress me this week and get a gold star next week from me, I would love to see multiple wave paintings. If you did like I did, where I gridded off, a bigger thing and did a series of 6 that we did with, what was that, the clouds? Something like that. And just, write some notes. This one's just with a big soft brush. This one's with, a fine detailed, little brush. This one's with a combination. This one's with a palette knife. This one's with a palette knife. And, I do my waves a lot with palette knife. And that's one of the few things I do, because I like to make the straight line with the wave, kind of where, the structure of the wave, I'll lay that down, and then I bring my brush back in, and I'll kind of manipulate and soften edges where I want, and kind of push and pull the paint a little bit. Yeah. So very good questions. And truthfully, yeah, if I ever come across as detail bad, impressionist good, tonalist good, color bad, please, understand that I'm either not communicating properly, but I think all painting and all techniques are valid. And I really want you guys to experiment and play. My post on my Facebook page the other day, did anybody see that? Give me 1 second here. I'm going to pull up 2 things on Facebook. So this is a 2-sided reason here. If you guys are not members of my Facebook page and you are on Facebook, you should join it. Michael Orwick Arts. Except for it doesn't work, so never mind. Okay, there it is. But it is sure wanting to be slow. I think my wife's on a meeting downstairs. posting some of those tonalist ones. Oh goodness, sorry. Posted the waterfall. Why is it not loading? Okay, here's one thing I want to show you, and the other thing was just this post. I really came to this conclusion in listening to some of my friends talking about life. You know, life is an experiment. And so I really like this. Every painting is an experiment. You can't fail an experiment. You can only learn. It's like literally, I think, going to be one of my new mottos in the studio. And it's just so important that we just play and experiment and try new things. And what this does for us, this idea, is it allows for us to try new things, and we just don't get too attached to experiments, right? Experiments are checking a hypothesis or trying to prove a theorem, right? I think that's the right way to say it. I'm not a scientist, but I believe that's what I learned in 5th grade. And that's all we're doing is, you know, what's the hypothesis? What happens if I paint this wave with a palette knife? What happens if I paint this wave ultra detailed, right? What happens if I painted it with just big mop brushes, or, you know, the big soft flat brushes? And so anyways, just keep that in mind. Every painting is an experiment. You can't fail an experiment. You can only learn. The other thing is that we're just gathering data. We're just gathering information for the next experiment, for the next painting, and for the next painting, for the next painting. Every painting is about the next painting, right? We don't get attached. We don't fall in love, right? Just like I did with the wave one that just made me frozen in my tracks for years. The painting just sat and kind of like, why don't you love me anymore, Mike? And I was like, I do love you. That's the problem. And I wasn't getting in there, and I wasn't finishing it. I wasn't brave anymore. And when we fall in love with our half-baked paintings and we're afraid to ruin them, it really stunts our growth and our experimentation. All right. We're just going to keep painting. We're going to paint hundreds and thousands more paintings in our life. All of us, every one of you and me, are going to paint hundreds and hundreds of more paintings. So we got to be thinking not only about now, but down the road. How do I make those paintings the best they could be? All right. Really quickly, a little bit of a sidetrack, but this does feed in to what we were talking about detail, because this painting has, you'll see, gets to a point where it's beginning to look quite nice, in my opinion. But I actually dream of putting in individual grasses, and it's going to have Queen Anne's lace across here. If you guys were in one of my other classes, you saw me paint this really small. Now I'm doing it as a bigger 18 by 18, having such a good time, you know, learning from that little 8 by 8 inch first one I did. And now from this 18 by 18, learning more. And I think I'd like to do this probably as a 36 by 36 or even a 48 by 48, because there's interesting things, and there's already things in this design that I would change. But here you go. I did the wipe away underpainting with the Indian yellow and burnt umber. Okay. I don't think it lets me start over, but anyways, and then what I did just in this half a second that we just missed is I came across with brown pink, or oxide red, or earth red, or, you know, one of those very transparent, warm brown reds. All right, so here we go. And then I'm going to start adding color. So that's why I named it. Here comes the color, illuminated tones, what I'm named my painting style. And watch as I slowly build up color and temperature shifts. And I'm still planning to come in with the detail. So this is part 2 of 3 with that in mind, right? I'm not trying to finish the painting. I'm just building it up, this layer up, for the next layer's success.
Michael, in that piece, you know, at least my recollection is that when we do a wipe away, that we do it with one color. Did you just say that you did this wipe away started with Indian yellow and burnt umber?
Yeah, so I stained the canvas with Indian yellow. Like I just put that over across the whole entire canvas. And what I did, Karen, is I let that sit for probably like 5 minutes or so. And it's not sopping wet. I put it on, and then I take my paper towel and I spread it so it's nice and even. And what that also does is it soaks up any of the paint thinner that I use to make it a little more slippery. Not any, it doesn't pick up all of it, but it picks up a lot of it. So then I don't have a drippy, slippy, super wet surface. I don't like to paint on that. And so then what happens is that Indian yellow and most really transparent colors seem to stain.
Yeah.
I don't even think of it as glazing. I think of it as staining. They kind of absorb into the surface faster than opaque colors. So then anyways, what I've done is that then I leave that. Yeah, I apologize. I'm going to go back in time. We're going to start just a little further back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just didn't remember. I mean, I know that you
Great question.
done it for,
I think I have it up in here. Oh boy, I posted. Oh, maybe it's this one. Oh, here it is. Okay. So you see, stained it.
yeah,
So first I did was put a bunch of brush strokes down, but you know, it's really hard with a brush. I don't want to just sit there and make it all perfect. So then I take my paper towel and wipe it back. And now I found that that actually helps twofold because it helps spread even color, or I don't care if it's too even. I know that I'm going to put another layer of paint and I'm going to come back in and continue to wipe away. But yes, it just helps to cover. Otherwise, it's hard to get up to the edges. Blah, blah, blah. There we go. All right. Then I begin with this is burnt umber coming across. And I know a lot of times, you guys, I will cover the whole surface. You've seen me do that, right?
Right.
Cover the entire thing and then come back and wipe away. But I knew need to, you know, it's just extra effort that I was going to basically wipe away this whole area up here. Right.
Okay.
So kind of just went, you know what, this will look cool. You see how it's thicker to thinner. I knew that this was the periphery of the trees. And already, if we can just kind of use our imagination and think of this as a shrub or a bush or tree or whatever, doesn't that look like denser tree and thinner tree? So I'm just using, you know,
Different,
that comes here from completely hours and days and months of experimentation and just trying, right?
okay, yeah. And then you did a wipe away over that
Yeah. So
layer.
I
Or
let
you
that
began
sit, so I let that sit because it's in fast forward. This is hours of painting time, but it looks like, you know, nothing. So then you can see there's a little bit of the underlying structure that I wanted.
Yeah,
Now I'm wiping it away.
okay.
Another one. I went ahead and did two. This one started with, I knew that my big shapes were there. I didn't have to wipe away. So I just saved myself paper towels and arthritis in my elbow and, you know, all that. So then I let that other one come back and now I started to bring out the detail, but not a lot of detail. That's where it ends. It's not a lot.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
It's always
Hey,
better.
Michael, can you,
Yeah.
sorry, Michael, can you,
There we go. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
sorry. Question from Barb. Can you use that same technique on waves?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do today. That'll be kind of fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Part two, where are you? Part two, where are you? Part two, where are you? This is a very short version where I this is that demo I did with Eric Rhodes, part one. And then I just added that thing on back. Part two. Eesh. Okay, here we are. It'll start. Oh, I guess it just keeps going. Okay, so I'm going to let this play through. You can see I'm already thinking temperature shifts, right? I brought in the cools. I'm trying to figure out how much aerial perspective do I want in this piece? Like how far back, how much fog, how much cool, even though the light is warm and the sun hasn't risen. So it's not hitting anything. It's just illuminating the top of the sky. It's coming from behind the horizon, illuminating the top of the sky. And then what this light is from the sky bouncing back down, right? So watch as I want to start cooling things down. See how that already pushes these trees back from these, right? Not only their diminished size and closer up towards the, you know, perceived horizon line, but they're now cooler and bluer. Sorry, I don't think I can zoom in at all.
Is that just yeah, the mist begins to happen. Is that like a gray?
Yeah, blue gray.
Blue gray, yeah.
And so I wanted to, I took that dark area that was down here and I just grabbed my brushes because I wanted to have some implied texture and detail. So I just kind of scrubbed in. I turned some of them on their sides, did some of them big and direct, used a couple different values. I've got a pretty big pile of kind of a dirty yellow ochre mixed on my palette at this point. And I was, I let there be blues, like gray blues. There's lots of touches of pink in here. And yeah, and then I come in with the sky because I don't want all that yellow. It just kind of ruins my illusion. So I wanted a cool color to make the yellow more special, right? If everything's glowing, nothing's glowing. If everything's special, nothing's special, right? If everything's warm, there's no warm. If everything's cool, there's no cool. It just is. So now I've got cool to warm with little hints of kind of soft striated clouds through there, coming down towards my warm horizon. Again, my sun is still not rising. It's just tucked behind, right? Just behind here. So it's gaining after I stopped videoing, I actually came back and knocked down a lot of the penumbra or whatever we want to call it, that glowy band that I like. I left it here because this part's against the warmer sky, but this part isn't against a warm sky. And the light isn't strong and direct. So I kind of grabbed a smaller brush and brought some of the color from the sky down and some of the colors from the tree up and covered up a lot of this, got rid of a lot of the warm glow in here. I can show you the photo when we change out of here, or the painting. It's on the wall behind me. But yeah, my next plan is to literally grab a small brush, Karen, and start, or a nice brush with a good shape, turn it on its side, with a good edge. And I'm just going to mix up piles of paint, and I'm going to have hundreds of long, tall grasses. Like the grasses are going to come all the way up from here to here in some of these, and then it's going to be a band of Queen Anne's lace here, and then some of that superimposing themselves over the tops of these darks, which will make them nice and showy. And some of them will be way more in shadow, and some of them will be beginning to pick up a little bit of that reflected light. So I'm really planning the painting out, building it up piece by piece. So if you're sitting down, if I was going to sit down and do this whole painting at one time, and my intention was to do really detailed grasses, I'd just drive myself batty. I'd be painting wet into sopping wet and everything else. So by letting it dry a little bit, it doesn't even have to fully dry, it just has to tack up so that the bottom of the painting leaves me alone to a degree, unless I want it to blend. And I'm just going to use a really light touch. I'm going to mix up a good sized pile of paint. I'm going to load up my brush by dipping it into that pile of paint. If I've spread out my paint all over the palette and it's really thin and I can't load up my brush, I'm going to grab my palette knife and I'm going to scoop that paint back up and put it in a pile, or I'm going to mix more, load that brush up. I'm going to use a little bit of medium. I might get away from the medium I've been using so far because it's so sticky and so honey-like that it won't do the motion I want to do, that big, I want to be painting with my arm and shoot, right? So I got to plan ahead. So I want a slick, fast, and I want my paint to be able to stay. When it's really sticky and hard, the brush, even if I take the brush stroke and drag it all the way up here, the paint will probably only go this far, and then I'll just be rubbing an empty brush. But if I load it with a medium like Galkid, with a little bit of Gamsol, or one of the more liquidy mediums with a little bit of Gamsol, the paint thinner, then I can load that up, and if I barely touch, I can just take that brush stroke for long journeys.
Yeah, thanks.
Everybody understand that?
Yes.
Another tool I will use is, especially in the smaller ones, is I've got all my old credit cards or room key cards and stuff. I'll just turn those on their sides, dip them into a little bit of paint and do almost like a stamp. And the cool thing is by putting my thumb against, on one side and my two fingers on the other, I can bend those. And so I can just almost use them like a stamp that I'll just slowly slide. And I also have really flimsy rulers that I'll do that with. Or I'll just kind of paint the edge. If I do that with like power lines and barbed wire fence, if I ever want that detail in there. Because sometimes a little bit of detail will really make the rest of it sing. Phew, that was a big
Thank
sidetrack.
you.
but I
Thank
think
you.
important. Yeah. All right, let's get back to beauty of brushwork. All right, I think that is going to be the end of the lesson. Is that was, yeah, I was intending to do 1 hour lesson, 1 hour of critique, and 1 hour of painting demo, which inevitably will turn into 2. They never stop. Great. How are we doing, everybody? Should we take a little 5-minute break, and then we will come back and look at some of your guys' beautiful paintings that you've turned in here? Look at that. Ah, so cool.
Great,
All right,
great,
Sounds
great.
good.
5-minute break.
Mhm.
All right, thank you
I
guys.
need
Thank
help with rocks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.